Train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio earlier this year, spewing toxic chemicals into the air. There were concerns about those long-term health effects on the residents. Now, researchers at the University of Kentucky have been visiting the area to gather more data as part of a larger study. When 38 train cars plunged into a river along the Ohio-Pennsylvania border earlier this year, neighbors were worried. When those rail cars ignited and spewed toxins into the air and water, residents were horrified.
Everyone in the community needs this. So our goal is to, this is like a little mini test. We're going to measure, see what we find, and then I anticipate being able to go much, much larger.
Dr. Erin Haynes, an epidemiologist with the University of Kentucky, turned to science to help better understand what people were dealing with. As an Ohio resident herself, she understood the lingering questions.
We're all connected. When it comes to environment, the entire globe is connected, the Earth.
The first stage was an online survey given to about 300 participants about symptoms and health concerns. They're from 9 different counties in Ohio and West Virginia. About 80 people from the survey began wearing silicone wristbands for 7 days, which can help measure chemical exposure.
We have been told that we are going to just get cancer. You know, if I have to be a lab rat to prove that there's chemicals here and that gets us more funding and more testing, then that's what we're going to do.
One thing we did not predict was that the Canadian wildfire smoke would be blowing into town the day that we passed out the wristband. So we're also monitoring that, because that is another exposure, and that could be measured on the wristband.
20 more residents provided blood and urine samples for analysis.
And from this information, we'll build larger research studies. We just need to know exactly where to target the energy and the research.
Now they wait for results to better inform and help make future decisions. Now, she told us in the initial survey, respondents said they were experiencing headaches, nausea, and even throat irritation. And once they were surveyed again months later, more than 80% say they were still dealing with those same symptoms.